Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Assalamu alaikum, Farhana.
Walaikum salam, Saadia, and assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy that you could join me.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on your show, Saadia.
So, Farhana Shahzad is right now a faculty member at LUMS, which is the Lahore University of Management Sciences. She is multi-talented. She has a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the National College of Arts, Lahore. She also has a postgraduate diploma in ELT from FC University in Lahore, where she taught. She also has an MPhil in ELT from Kinnaird College, Lahore. And moving on to her most impressive qualification, Farhana has an MSc in Applied Linguistics from the University of Oxford. Currently, as I just said, she's a teaching fellow at LUMS. So, with that brief introduction, I will move on to you, Farhana. आप हमें बताएं और हमसे शेयर करें कि आपने इतनी ज़्यादा क्वालिफिकेशंस कैसे एक्वायर की और आप यहाँ तक कैसे पहुंची हैं.
Okay, thank you, Sadia, for such an illustrious introduction. I wasn't expecting that. Anyways, that was quite a detail from my end. All right, all right. So it's a long journey, though I'm not that old, but yes, it's a long journey, if I might say so myself. So as it happens, things started happening. Yeah, and. Um, Earlier on, my childhood was, since I have to start off with the beginning, of course, my childhood, my father was working in Nigeria. He as a mechanical engineer on a
Right,
project. So we were stationed in Nigeria in different
right.
states there. And I spent my entire childhood, my initial schooling there till O levels, starting from grade one, from my primary till the O levels. All right.
Mhm.
So I did my O levels from there, and then we shifted to Pakistan because then my father said, and my parents decided, now we'll have to send our daughter off to the university very soon,
Right.
and the universities were very far from the state which we were residing in.
Mhm.
So they
Mhm.
didn't want that to happen. Being an only daughter, they were quite protective
Yeah.
as parents, and
Mhm.
so they made a decision, and we shifted back to Pakistan. And
Okay.
so once we shifted to Pakistan, I got an admission in Kinnaird College.
Okay.
In the all right, and this was more of my parents' decision back in our day when we were kids.
Mm.
Obviously, parents used to take our decisions, especially regarding our,
Right.
our
Right.
studies and our
Mhm.
careers and our professions. And back in those days, there were mainly two professions: either you become a doctor or you become an engineer. All
That's
right,
true.
that's
Yeah.
about it. We didn't have. I mean, we didn't have so many professions or offshoots or so many diversification or diversified fields that you get now. These days are I mean, these days kids are blessed with, they can choose whatever they want to. I mean,
True.
there's so many fields these days. I mean,
Mhm.
professional careers, which and specializations as well. So we didn't have, unfortunately, back when we were studying, at least I was studying, we didn't have that. So I ended up in FSC, the pre-medical intermediate at KC.
Okay.
And being a student, okay, so that was the college part. And then
Mhm.
later on, that this was quite a jump from O levels and studying all your life abroad and all your studies being conceptual based. It was quite a contrast
A
from what I
huge.
had been taught
Yeah.
all my life. So I
Mhm.
had to jump from learning conceptually to suddenly thrown into the deep end of rote learning. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
not putting anyone down here. Please bear with me because I really had no clue. I was completely clueless. So I was
Right.
literally thrown into the deep end. Till that time, I hadn't had any tuitions, which, of course, even my kids these days, I mean,
Yeah.
every child
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
destined to end up getting tuitions, unless and until they get tuitions, they do not do well in their major
That's
exams.
true.
All right.
Mm.
Yeah, so I hadn't had any experience whatsoever. So I was at a very young age, actually. I was only 14 when I did my O levels, and I was only 16 when I did my intermediate. So then my father said, "Okay, my life has been a kind of the decisions were made for me at that till that point of time,
Mm.
and quite most of the things happened accidentally also. My father
Okay.
said, "Oh," suddenly he picked up the newspaper one day and said, "Oh, they have this admissions going on for NCA," and my taya, my uncle, he
Right.
was an ex NCAite as well. Back then, when it
Really?
was Mayo School of Arts. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah,
He's also an architect. Now
okay.
he's no more. He was an architect, I should rather say. So
Right.
he was an architect back
Mm-hmm.
in the when it was only called Mayo School of Arts. So
Okay.
he said, "Oh, my brother has done it from here. Why don't you apply as well?" So I
Mm.
said, "But I thought this was purely an art degree, and about how will I manage and all that,
Mm.
the way
Mm.
it goes." And he says, "Okay, let's enroll you into." I think I did get enrolled into for a couple of weeks for Alhambra, drawing classes. I joined
Yeah,
those.
yeah, we
And
used
then
to take
I
those
started
classes.
sketching. Remember?
Right.
Yes, we used to take
Yeah.
those classes.
Yeah.
And I joined those. And then somehow I don't know, I did well. I don't know how I did. And
Mm.
then we had this live, drawing which test which we were supposed to, and I
Right.
cleared that. Somehow I
Right.
cleared it. And I
Yeah.
cleared my interviews and I landed at NCA. And that too in architecture. So,
So were you
and
good at
though it
math?
is,
Farhana, were
yeah,
you good at
I am good at math. I am good at math. I'm still good at
math?
because I'm actually perhaps a jack of all trades, maybe master of none, but I somehow have shifted. So I really do not know. Maybe it's just that competitive streak in me that gives me the drive to actually do well at things, whatever I am, whatever fate decides for me or whatever destiny actually throws my way, and I try to
Right.
overcome it and take it up as a challenge. So that's how I landed at MCA.
So,
And then
Farhana, I wanted to ask you, your father was an engineer, right? Am I correct?
he is,
So
yes, he is an
he
engineer,
did,
mechanical engineer.
right. So, did that influence his decision? Did that influence your
Perhaps
decision?
it did. I think perhaps it did. It did because
Hmm.
I do belong to a family of engineers. My brother also did mechanical engineering.
Right.
Obviously, as I said, my uncle was an architect.
And
So I do belong to a family of engineers, and I think that did influence his
right.
decision of sending me.
Actually,
So
so
I
it's
ended up at
interesting,
NCA.
Farhana, because then when you did finally get married after NCA,
Mhm,
your husband
mhm.
is also an engineer, right?
Yes, yes. to my well, yes, fate has been sending me all these engineers, born in an engineer family, married to a civil engineer, and becoming an engineer myself. Architecture
Right.
is an engineering degree as well. So yes, I got married off right after after graduation, though I did not receive my degree as yet, which
Hmm.
happened after I got married. So the
Oh.
moment I got married, sorry,
Mhm.
the moment I passed out of NCA, I got
Right.
married, and yes, and then and that too to a person who was in the government sector.
Mm-hmm.
So he kept on getting posted to very remote areas,
Right.
extremely remote areas.
Yeah.
And there, back then, I think even now, people have no idea what an architect is. Oh, the engineer hota hai koi, but and that too, imagining a woman being an engineer at that, a female, a lady being an engineer. So
Right.
that was completely unheard of. So I sort of stopped doing anything for perhaps first 15 years of my life. Yes, of my married life. 10th
You didn't
to
practice
at least,
as
yeah.
as an
I didn't
architect.
practice any,
Hmm.
as an architect. I did,
Okay.
however, started teaching when we were posted at Sahiwal. When my husband was posted at Sahiwal, I started teaching as an art teacher,
Okay.
which I found quite cumbersome, really
Hmm.
tiring,
Hmm.
very
Why?
tedious, very, very tedious.
Why?
Why? Because I was the art teacher of the entire school. Imagine that, Sadia. I was
What?
teaching, yes, yes, that's what they do with the art teachers. Because it
Oh.
was a private school, it was a city school basically, not a
Okay.
small school at any
Mm-hmm.
by any standard. So this was, and I was an art teacher of all the school. Imagine I was teaching the preschoolers, the elementary schoolers, the primary schoolers, the elementary kids, and then up to secondary and higher secondary. And that was, and I was also making the boards, organizing events for them, decorating, uh, doing all that stuff,
Wow.
and teaching as well, teaching art as well. And it was so tiring for me. So I had a daughter by then, my eldest daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
she was, I think, hardly a toddler back then. So
Okay.
it was kind of hard for me. So I think that perhaps after a year I left that job,
Hmm.
and then we got transferred to Lahore,
Okay.
and ever since we have been here in Lahore.
Yay.
Yay! Three cheers to that. Yes, ever since we've been here in Lahore,
Mm-hmm.
and then I had a couple of more kids. I had my boys, and then once I sent them off to school, the third one, the last one,
Right. Right.
then I started teaching again because
Okay.
I thought, but not as an art teacher this time, mind you.
Hmm.
Okay. So I started teaching because I had had a very, very tough experience
Right. Yeah.
teaching art. I just told you. So I realized that I was good at it,
Hmm.
teaching other subjects rather than art. And I said, okay, might as well do something about it.
Hmm.
And then this was a decision which I made for myself and not influenced by anybody, but my own decision. So I said, might as well get some, expertise in that area in teaching, and
Hmm.
I should prove that I can teach, right? So I got enrolled into, and then that also happened. My husband actually came up with this. He saw the paper and he says, "Oh, you're looking for a degree in teaching, or something to do with teaching. Why don't you start a diploma course in English language? English language. Why English language? I think that
Hmm.
would be your next question. English, I mean, language has always been my first love, so to say, because I was always an avid reader since my
Right.
childhood.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't go to sleep without reading before,
Mm.
unless and until I had read something. I had a
Right.
whole library. Kids these days, they're so, they have severed ties with the print media, of
They
course,
have.
because of this device which we have in our hands, obviously the
Exactly.
mobiles, the social media. They're
Yeah.
so, and these laptops, I mean, they completely they have completely cut off themselves from
That's
the
so
print
true.
media. But
Yeah.
that's so true. They
Mm.
do not know how to read anymore. But at least I can say, I know you for a fact would have
Yeah.
been an avid
Mm-hmm.
reader. So I was
Right.
I would always read myself to sleep. So
Mm.
that's how I got interested in English language, as a second, as a
Right.
backup
Yeah.
for jumping from architecture to
Right.
English language
But
teaching.
and
So
Farhana, you're so right. I mean, there's nothing like holding an actual book in your hands when you're reading. That's part of the whole process. And
that's
nowadays, nobody does it anymore.
nobody does
Have
it.
Kindle
Remember?
and yeah,
Yes, yes, everything. And everything has soft copies. There's nothing tangible. I mean,
yeah,
remember, we used to cherish books. We used to
yes,
cherish them. And
yeah,
we used to hold them in our hands. We used to
mm-hmm,
collect them. And we
right,
used to exchange them also.
yeah,
We used to have friends and we used to exchange our library, our books. I
Right.
remember the stage when I was during the teens. I was very fond of these mystery series, Famous Five,
Ah,
Nancy
yeah.
Drews, and
And
Enid Blytons, and all those. Remember
mm,
when while we were growing up, and we used to exchange those series, and the ones which we didn't have, we used to exchange them, and all
yeah.
got hold of all. Like
Mm-hmm.
they do it these days regarding Harry Potter, but not that for print, the book itself, but
Right, right.
perhaps the movie. I
Yeah, yeah.
think. But we
Huh.
used to do that. I mean, and that's how I grew my library, and then went on to read some adult stuff, obviously, some
Mm,
more mature reading at that,
right, right.
and that's how it
But
developed
but,
as a
Farhana,
passion.
it's so interesting that you're telling me that your husband actually looked at the paper and he said, "Well, this is what you're looking for." So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're very lucky to have
yeah.
such an amazingly, supportive husband.
Yes, I think obviously obviously I wouldn't have been able to do it
है
unless
ना?
and until
हाँ,
he was not supportive of my
yeah.
decision. I
Hmm.
did he supported me all the way, and my parents did as well,
Yeah.
because remember I had three kids by then. I
Mm-hmm.
was a mother of
Right.
three. All right.
Right.
And that
Hmm.
they were, my youngest was only pre nursery student. He was hardly 3 years old, not even that. When I started my postgraduate diploma, he hadn't started going to school yet.
अच्छा.
I remember he was still in the carry court. He was a baby. And I
Mm-hmm.
started my postgraduate diploma. And I used to leave my kids at my mom's, and I had these evening classes from 3 to 6 every day.
Okay.
And I used to leave, yeah, my three of my kids at my mom's and go to FC College. And then once I did the diploma, I topped
Hmm.
that diploma. That really incentivized
That,
my decision. That
yeah.
made it prove to me, to myself, I actually substantiated the point that
Hmm.
I can teach. And I was competing with the best of the best, the big guns of the game. I mean, these
Hmm.
were professors, these were lecturers who had been teaching for the past 2 decades there, and I topped the course. I
Wow.
that really gave me a push. It really incentivized me.
Mm-hmm.
That gave me the drive that I can do it. This is
Yeah.
meant. That gave me a sign that probably I am. This is meant for me. I am destined to do it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So then once I got the diploma, and then I started looking for other MPhil, sorry, ELT courses. Remember, I said I didn't want to teach in a school anymore. I
Right.
wanted to teach in a university. So I
Yeah.
needed a degree for, obviously, to
Hmm.
teach at that level, that high
Right.
level, I mean, that
Right.
tertiary level. So
Mm-hmm.
the least degree which you needed to possess was an MPhil. So that was a prerequisite for teaching in any university. All
Got
right,
it.
anywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
I enrolled into that at KC,
Hmm.
Kinnaird College, MPhil
Right.
in English language teaching, and I aced that as well. So Alhamdulillah, I've been very fortunate. Once I finished my degree,
Mm-hmm.
there was this break in the middle of 3 months. All right, before I got my results of
Mm-hmm.
MPhil, I said, why should I sit idle? Maybe I might as well start teaching somewhere. So
Hmm.
I started teaching at LJ's Defense, or Lahore Grammar School,
Right. Right.
and there I was teaching grade high schoolers. All right, and
Mm-hmm.
so I taught for a term there, and the moment I got my MPhil result, I
Hmm.
resigned, and I simply
Ah-ha.
yeah, I said no more teaching at the school anymore. I am done with it.
Okay.
So I actually started teaching at Park Ames first, and then at BA. It was just a baby step, one
Mm-hmm.
baby step at a time, and then at
Right.
UCP, and then at BNU, and finally I landed at LUMS. And ever since, it's
Hmm.
been a decade now, I've been teaching at LUMS now.
Wow.
And I recently enrolled a couple of years back before the
Right.
pandemic hit
Mm-hmm.
in an MSc program in applied linguistics at the University of Oxford,
Mm-hmm.
and for language teaching again. All
Right.
right. So I was competing again with the best of the best,
Right.
at
Oxford.
LUMS. This is what,
Yeah.
yes, again.
Mm.
So there, I recently completed that, and I passed with credit, and
Yay.
there's,
You.
yeah, yeah.
How has the pandemic, अब तो थोड़ा बेहतर हो गया, लेकिन how did it really affect the LUMS environment, your teaching, the students'
Oh, it has affected them, I mean, considerably. Everything has been affected, even our teaching system. Now we shifted to an online forum, a virtual forum, instead of obviously an in-person teaching. And that was very sudden. Last
Right.
year, we suddenly shifted
Mm-hmm.
from an in-person to online. Students are also finding it harder,
Hmm.
and it's very hard for the teachers as well, for the professors and the instructors as well. Why? Because earlier on, when we were done with the lectures, with the sessions, we
Hmm.
were, after our office hours, we were allowed to go home, and no more uh, thinking about lumps, no more. We were
Yeah.
completely at home.
Right.
You
With
know,
online.
there
It's
was a there was a demarcation between the two. There
right.
was this divide, like a neat divide. A
Mm.
very that this is your workplace and this is your home.
Right.
So
Yeah.
now it has suddenly been amalgamated, and so we are accessible 24/7. And in the first semester of teaching on a virtual forum, on an online forum,
Mm-hmm.
I was up at 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, answering queries of students,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
I realized, what have I done to? I have no more home time at all. I never get a break. So, I mean, there was no concept of home.
Right.
After working a full day at the uni, now
Hmm.
you have a breather. You're at home. You're there for your kids. You're there for your husband. You're for your home. All right. I mean, you can spend some time without thinking about your
Yeah.
your teaching.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
recently, then after the first semester, I realized, no, can do this is not going to happen in the next
Mm.
semester. So now I have made it a point that I do not answer my students' queries after a certain point of like
Good.
maybe midnight.
Good. Right.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's midnight is also still very late in the day. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
I still have put my foot down that okay, after this, after these hours, I'm not going to answer their
It's
emails
always
or their.
like have some boundaries with students so they know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That was the
Mm-hmm.
word which I was looking for. The boundary. I have set a boundary now, so I need to
Right.
have. I did that
Mm-hmm.
after the first semester, which we were thrown into,
Yeah. So you
literally.
still having online classes, Abibi?
Yes, we are still having online
That
classes.
how was it like growing up in Nigeria, and what was this kind of culture shock that you were talking about, if I can call it that? Like,
Oh,
you're
yes, it was a big culture shock. Definitely a huge culture shock.
mm-hmm.
It was a lot of adventure. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of it was though we were cocooned a lot. We used
Right.
to have a community, because my father, since he's an engineer,
Hmm.
so he used to be based at places where there were projects going on.
Right.
Like he was. And they used to have colonies for these engineers who were working
Mm-hmm.
on those projects. All right, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of communal life there. We actually grew up in a very multi-ethnic, multicultural sort of a setting, and
Right.
therefore it was way easier for me to perhaps speak with them. And it was a huge cultural shock when I came back to Pakistan. I didn't
Yeah.
know how had we. I'm sorry, I'm not proud of it, but since I was schooled in Nigeria, did not study Urdu as a language, which I am extremely, extremely ashamed of. And yes, and to this day, I think, and even though my kids are studying in Pakistan,
Hmm.
though, but the latest dilemma of Pakistani private schooling system is that
Hmm.
they have completely rid their students of the opportunity of studying proper Urdu. They are no more, I mean, they're not giving them the opportunity to study Urdu as a language. They just teach them Urdu grammar, and that too
Hmm.
they rote learn. They do not know anything about Urdu. So I actually taught Urdu to my kids by first learning it. So I learned it in whichever class they were. I was also in the same class. So that's how I learned Urdu. So I can till this day, till date, I can read printed Urdu, but I still cannot read written
So
Urdu.
they're not teaching Urdu the same way as they used to, like.
Yeah, yeah, as they used to. My eldest, my daughter, though she has
Mm-hmm.
taken Urdu, she was taught Urdu as a language with
Hmm.
Urdu literature, which is I
Right.
think is extremely rich,
Hmm.
and Urdu and all the different genres of the language,
Right.
reading, writing, and
Hmm. Hmm.
whatever. But
Hmm.
my sons, they were taught Urdu as an easy language, sorry, easy Urdu instead of main Urdu. So
Why?
that was, yeah, I do not know why they do it.
Everyone
It's a
should.
language which
Right.
our kids and our students should acquire.
Hmm.
I mean, they should be proud of, and I unfortunately see that it is a dying language. The way they, because they've completely, removed the literature section from, because it is just easy Urdu. They're just learning a few words or some rules of grammar, Urdu grammar, and
Mm-hmm.
that's about it.
That's
And
awful.
they don't even know how to. I think perhaps my Urdu is better than my children, my boys, my son's Urdu, which they speak. My
Yours is
daughter, though she
good, by the way. I mean, at least conversation में तो बहुत अच्छी
हाँ,
है.
मैं बोल सकती हूँ,
हाँ.
बिल्कुल बोल
Hmm.
सकती हूँ। सॉरी,
Hmm.
मैं अभी तक बोली ही नहीं हूँ, लेकिन मैं बहुत अच्छी तरह उर्दू
हाँ हाँ
बोलती हूँ।
हाँ हाँ. बिल्कुल.
तो वो आदत पड़ गई है ना कि अगर इंग्लिश में कोई बात कर रहा है तो वो बंदा उसी तरह जवाब देता रहता है।
Hmm.
तो वो उसी तरह, तो वो एक इस तरह से बात होती रहती है। तो लेकिन
Hmm.
मेरी उर्दू ठीक ठाक है, मैं बहुत अच्छी तरह उर्दू बोलती हूँ।
ठीक है,
मुझे कोई
फरहाना, आपने प्रूव कर दिया. रिपीट कर करके मैं बहुत अच्छी उर्दू बोलती हूँ. हाँ हाँ, नहीं, बट फॉर द पीपल हु वाचिंग, यस,
यस
फरहाना की उर्दू
प्लीज,
बहुत अच्छी है.
मुझे ऐसे मत समझे कि भी खुद तो कह रही है और खुद इंग्लिश में बात कर रही है, तो ये मत समझे कि डबल स्टैंडर्ड्स है भाई। मैं तो खुद ही एक लिंग्विस्ट हूँ,
हम्म. हम्म.
तो मुझे तो लैंग्वेजेस का ज्यादा वो होना चाहिए। तो इसीलिए कह रही हूँ कि उर्दू जो है एक जबान है जो बहुत कम होती जा रही है, हम लोग बहुत
हम्म.
कम बोल रहे हैं उसको।
हम्म.
और अच्छा, ये रीजन भी हमारा एक्चुअली, मतलब आई थिंक, मतलब मसला क्या है हमारे साथ,
हम्म.
जो हमारे पार्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड में, बिकॉज हम लोग कॉलोनाइज्ड हुए ना। अब
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
और मुल्कों के साथ, जैसे नेशंस लाइक, जो हम लोग कहते हैं एक ईएफएल स्टूडेंट है और एक ईएसएल, हम लोग हैं ईएसएल स्टेटस के स्टूडेंट, इंग्लिश
हम्म.
एज ए सेकेंड लैंग्वेज। बिकॉज
राइट.
हमारे ऊपर अंग्रेजों ने तो हुकूमत की थी, तो
हम्म.
ऑब्वियसली वी वर कॉलोनाइज्ड, राइट।
हम्म.
तो इट
हम्म.
बिकेम लैंग्वेज ऑफ ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज हो गई। कभी बीच में कभी उर्दू हो जाती थी, कभी वो हो जाता था। तो इट हैज बीन लाइक अ पेंडुलम, कॉन्स्टेंटली
राइट.
टू एंड फ्रो होते रहे, है ना।
बिल्कुल.
तो उस वजह से कहीं हम लोग रुके नहीं कि मतलब, और जैसा जापान है, चाइना है, जिससे हम नाउ भी मतलब बहुत ज्यादा कोलैबोरेशन हो रही है।
हम्म. हम्म.
उनके पास अगर उनको अपनी मतलब इंग्लिश बोलनी भी आती होगी तो वो बोलते
हम्म.
नहीं है, बिकॉज
हाँ.
दे बहुत वो प्राउड फील करते हैं कि जी हम लोग तो, हाँ, हम अपनी जबान में बात करेंगे। तो वो
बिल्कुल.
या तो मैंडरिन में बोलते हैं या चाइनीज में, जो उनकी और
हम्म.
जितनी भी जबानें हैं वो बोलते हैं, और
हम्म.
ट्रांसलेटर यूज करते हैं। इवन
राइट.
दो अगर उनको इंग्लिश बोलनी आती भी है, तो
हम्म.
वो लोग जो है वो ईएफएल स्टेटस के, क्योंकि वो कभी कॉलोनाइज नहीं हुआ है, इंग्लिश
या
एज अ फॉरेन लैंग्वेज
बिल्कुल
वो
सही.
लोग लेते हैं।
हम्म.
समझ आई ना। तो इस
Yeah.
वजह से हम लोग का साथ ये एक अब क्या हुआ, अच्छा हुआ, बुरा हुआ, आई कैन नॉट, मतलब मैं उसको वो नहीं करना चाहती हूँ, लेकिन इस वजह से हम लोग को वो विरासत में मिली है।
Yeah. Well, I hope they can do something about this because it is very important to know your own national language. And,
Exactly, but
you
I
know,
don't. Yeah, why not teach them Urdu as a
right.
language,
As
not
a language,
easier words.
exactly. हाँ,
My
बिल्कुल.
humble language, okay,
Right. Right.
and
जैसे
give
हमें सिखाया था, like, you didn't
exactly,
go to school here, but
exactly.
I did. So, हाँ.
Exactly. And yes, and the rest of when we were young, and my peers, all of you guys,
Hmm.
our
Hmm.
colleagues, our class fellows, they all learned Urdu as a language.
Right.
And
Right.
it's a rich language. Why are they completely ignoring it? Beats me. All right.
क्योंकि टू बी ऑनेस्ट फरहाना इंग्लिश भी यहाँ पे लोगों को ठीक नहीं आती
नहीं
तो
आती नहीं, वो तो
दैट
वही बात है ना कि वो तो वही बात हो गई ना, ना इधर के रहे ना उधर के रहे।
हाँ फरहाना नाइजीरिया में सीखी आपने कोई लैंग्वेज वहाँ क्या बोलते थे
नाइजीरिया में या
स्वाहिली
यस, नहीं, स्वाहिली इज परहैप्स ये साउथ अफ्रीका की है या केन्या की है, वहां पे होती थी, बहुत
अच्छा
डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस हैं
हम्म
because वहाँ 19 states हैं and each one of the states have a different language and they
वाह
are at daggers drawn between basically उनकी जो उनकी अपनी जो मेजर जबान जो सबसे ज्यादा जो है वो हाउसा है, हाउसा, इट्स
हम्म
कॉल्ड हाउसा, HAUSA,
हम्म
एंड कुछ कुछ वर्ड्स मुझे याद है, और उस वो भी बिकॉज दे वर आल्सो कॉलोनाइज्ड, तो
अच्छा
उनकी भी इंग्लिश ही कन्वर्स
इंग्लिश
करते थे मोस्टली इन इंग्लिश, राइट, और वहां पे भी उनकी भी लैंग्वेज इंग्लिश ही होती थी या फ्रेंच, or
हम्म
French. Some of the
हम्म
parts were French. Yeah, some of some of the African states have been colonized by French people as well.
राइट राइट
So the second language which we learned, sort of learned, was French as well.
हम्म
Hausa, since we obviously, I had Nigerian friends, so I could pick up a few words with them, or फिर थोड़ा सा converse कर लिया. Now it's been quite a long time. I have sort of forgotten, though
या
my father remembers a lot of words because
सीधा
he does. Used to.
हाँ
He's a very good. He's very good at acquiring new languages. Perhaps
अच्छा
I've inherited it from
हाँ
him,
या
from that side.
अच्छा फरहाना आपने इतनी ज़्यादा एजुकेशन ली एंड होपफुली आप पीएचडी की तरफ भी जाएंगी तो आपके जो बच्चे हैं योर
Mhm.
चिल्ड्रन दे मस्ट बी सो इंस्पायर्ड बाय योर लाइफ लॉन्ग लर्निंग एंड योर thirst for acquiring more knowledge. So, if you could just tell me and share with our viewers कि उनका क्या इंटरेस्ट है इन एक्वायरिंग मोर नॉलेज एंड इंटेलेक्ट वो क्या कर रहे हैं आजकल
As Dr. Saadia, actually, believe in giving a living example, or right, setting an example myself. So I did set that. So once as I told you, I've got 3 children. My eldest, mashallah, she has she did her O and A levels from LDS, and yes, she actually got a world distinction in economics.
वाओ
Yes, yes. And then she went to LUMS, did her BSc honors in economics, and then went on to do her masters from London School of Economics. And mashallah, I've been blessed with brilliant kids. I've been blessed, yes.
before we end Farhana is there anything that you would like to say to your students or to students anywhere who are watching any message
Oh, yes. To the students, since of course I am in the trade, so to say, yes, I would like to give them an advice that don't think the moment you enter into a tertiary institution, don't think that's it. I mean, whatever you have achieved, that is it. Think ahead. That's not the end of the world. You will be constantly, your entire life is going to be, should be, your aim should be to acquire knowledge. I mean, till your deathbed. I think that is what I have learned from my entire life, because I never knew I'll end up here. Look
Hmm.
from where I have started. So
Hmm.
that is a lesson which I have learned from my life, at least, and that is the lesson which I need to give my students, or any of your viewers, who I never think that is this is the end, and whatever we have achieved, that's about it. I know it. I am trying to perturb you, or probably up sort of make you dissatisfied with what, no, be dissatisfied with it, but yes, but never think that is the end. Things are constantly changing, and so are you
Right.
as a, all right, and so you do need to change as a person constantly. We need to evolve ourselves, our thinking, and yes, do not be very judgmental as people. Please stop doing that. और क्या कहते हैं ना, be tolerant.
Hmm.
And yes, in terms of, since it's a global village these days, be tolerant of multi-ethnicity, be tolerant of be tolerant of different languages, be tolerant of different cultures, and yes, and travel. I'll tell them to travel a lot.
Hmm.
Yes,
Hmm.
please make it a point. Travel. Why? Because actually traveling makes you more tolerant of other cultures, of
Very
other
true.
ethnicities, or and tells you that the color of your skin is not the only color that it exists out there.
Absolutely.
All right. There are, it's a rainbow of colors. Like
Hmm.
we as human beings are, we are in abundance, and it's a rainbow of ethnicities out there. So you really need to explore, and never think that this is the end of the world, or never think that whatever color you possess is the only one.
So, with this, our show comes to an end, and I would like to specially thank Farhana. Thank you so much, Farhana, for joining me today.
Thank you, Dr. Saadia, for having me today. It was a great experience to
It was
interview.
lovely. Thank you so much. Khuda Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.